Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be stepping into the fierce and unyielding world of the Ezomytes.
We really are.
We're not just looking at old texts. We're trying to piece together a society that was, well, forged in fire. We'll be using their historical lore, journal entries, even their proverbs.
And our mission for you listening is to really trace their lineage, to understand the commitments they made that define them even now.
Right. What drove them from just chaos to this incredible stability?
Exactly. From their very desperate origins to founding their main settlement, Ogum, and then establishing these really unique symbols of power, we want to figure out what holds them together.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start at the very beginning, a time they call the Winter of the World.
Yeah, and the accounts from that time are bleak.
I mean, Ginor's journals are incredibly humbling. He says they were, but savages clawing grubs from the dirt. Their story doesn't begin with some golden age.
No, it starts with pure struggle. And that image, that's foundational. It sets the scale for just how far they had to climb, and their main goal became never, ever going back to that.
So the migration that brought them to Ferrell, it wasn't exploration, it was a retreat.
It was the opposite of exploration. The sources are very clear. They were driven from elsewhere because there was, and I quote, simply too much corruption, too much darkness.
And corruption here.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about some political turmoil, are we? This sounds almost existential.
It absolutely was. This was a force that was capable of just unraveling their entire society. The accounts describe a time of chaos and terror.
Which led to huge losses, right, of people, of knowledge.
Extensive losses. So you have to understand, this wasn't a choice to find a better valley. This was a race to outrun complete annihilation. The terror must have been immense.
Which brings us to the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
A moment that defines everything that comes after it.
The oath.
The oath.
Yeah.
After being completely shattered, the clans come together and swear.
Yeah.
What was it exactly?
Lachlan the Lost formalized it. They swore an absolute oath that this flight would be the last time. The very last time they would ever be cast out of their homes.
Wow. Just think about that. They would rather die where they stood than ever run again.
That is the cornerstone. That's the foundation of their entire society. They traded the idea of mobility, which had failed them, for absolute, unyielding permanence.
So with that oath, finding the right place to stop becomes the single most important decision.
It has to be. And they stop in Ferrell. And we have this great little hint that there was a very clear and delicious reason they chose that exact spot to found Ogum.
I love that phrasing, delicious reason. It suggests it wasn't just luck. This was strategic.
It had to be. If your founding principle is never flee again, you need a home that is defensible, sustainable, maybe with unique resources. It's the first sign of them shifting from savages to, well, masters of their own destiny.
And Ogum becomes this nucleus, the center of their new world. And that brings us to the greatsword, Agnar.
Yes. Agnar is, it's the physical embodiment of their decision to settle. It's not just a sword. It's an ancient weapon of the old magics.
And it's said to be inspired by the Great Wolf itself. That feels significant.
Incredibly significant. It suggests their authority is tied to something primal, fierce, a protector of territory. The legend says it was forged specifically for the original clan leader.
To guide them to this new, safe land?
Precisely. The sword is literally their compass. It connects the founding of Ogum directly to the power of the leader holding it.
But the way that power worked,
Yeah.
it evolved, didn't it? Originally, Agnar was just passed to the leader of the strongest clan.
Right. And you can imagine what that was like. Constant internal fighting. Might makes right, tested every single day.
It seems like a contradiction. How can you build an unbreakable fortress if you're always fighting inside the walls?
You can't. And they realize that. The big innovation, the thing that changes everything, is when they establish the formal position of Count in Ogum.
And the sword was then bound to the role, not the person's strength.
Exactly. That's a profound shift. The source of power moves from an individual's raw, fleeting strength to the institution of the state. They codified their stability.
It's the moment they realize they have to work together to honor the oath.
Right. But even with that new structure, their core mindset, that survivalist instinct, it never goes away.
Let's talk about those core values, because they are so practical. They call themselves masters of wit, strength, and cunning.
And the wit, the cunning, is just as important as the strength.
There's that proverb, to survive the harsh winters, you must be like the fox. What does the fox tell us?
It tells you that brute force isn't enough. The fox is clever, efficient, adaptable. It's a memory of being helpless, of having to be smarter to survive.
And that translates into these hard-won little rules for life, like take everything and waste nothing.
When you come from absolute scarcity, efficiency is just baseline. It's not a virtue, it's a requirement to even exist.
But all this individual cunning has to serve the group. And that brings me to my favorite of their proverbs. A stone is not a stone. It is but one part of a fortress.
That just sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? An individual stone is strong, sure, but it's useless alone. Their entire struggle is collective. Your identity is secondary to the strength of the wall.
And that creates this strange mix of resilience, but also kind of humility. There's another saying, you've no reason for fear when you're a root in a fen.
Such a powerful image. A fen is messy, hard to get through. A root there is low profile, almost impossible to dislodge. It's about finding safety in being entrenched, not in being prominent.
And this is where their idea of glory gets really interesting. The goal isn't a long life. The highest achievement for an Ezomyte is to live on in a song or a poem.
Think about that. The clan endures, but you don't. So your personal lifespan, it's secondary. Your glory is only guaranteed if your actions strengthen the collective memory, the fortress.
It forces every action to be measured against that oath, generation after generation.
And that commitment shows up in their tools, their systems of rule. They use runes, and an outside observer, Johann, noted they are oddly similar to our own.
What do you make of that detail?
It suggests they aren't in a vacuum. Maybe the corruption they fled was a threat to a magical system that was once more widespread. So their defense of Ogham isn't just for themselves. Maybe it's a defense of an older way of things.
And their runic magic is tied directly to the stability of their government. The rune of authority on the Count's ring is incredibly sensitive.
It is. It's said to dim precisely one lunar cycle after a Count's soul is laid to rest.
That's so specific. Why one lunar cycle?
Politically, it's genius. It prevents an immediate power vacuum. It allows for an organized succession, not a chaotic scramble for power. It builds stability right into their magic. It's the opposite of the old strongest clan problem.
But their authority is never just symbolic. It's always tied to the capacity for violence. Their symbol of state for centuries was the Helepolis,
Which was powerful enough to split heads and sunder city gates.
So how does a weapon of war become your national symbol?
Because for the Ezomytes, authority is the capacity for ruthless defense. The symbol sends a clear message. Our stability is guaranteed by our ability to absolutely shatter our enemies. It's not ceremonial. It says, don't mistake our order for weakness.
And their military backs that up, especially the cavalry. The accounts say, like lightning, the Ezomyte cavalry need never strike twice.
Efficiency again. Waste nothing. Not even a second sword stroke. They hit hard, fast, and it's over. A force perfectly designed to defend the fortress.
And yet, after all this structure, all this stability, the Count, the runes, we come back to this incredible tension.
The tallest tree.
Cut down the tallest tree and another becomes the tallest. They still endorse this ruthless internal competition. Why?
This is the risk and maybe the genius of their society. On one hand, you need the fortress, you need unity. On the other hand, what happens if the leader, the Count, gets complacent, gets weak?
It's a self-correcting mechanism. It prevents stagnation.
Precisely. It's a cultural mandate. The leadership must constantly prove itself worthy. They were forced to retreat because they were weak. They built a system for stability, but they will never forget that only the strongest and most cunning are fit to lead the defense.
So if the Count becomes a liability, the culture itself demands a replacement.
A stronger tree must be allowed to grow. It's a mechanism designed to keep their leadership perpetually ruthless.
So we have this society born from total desperation, a people bound by an oath to never retreat, and they're held together by this intense contradiction.
Total unity of the fortress on the outside, but brutal competition for strength on the inside.
So what does this all mean for you? We've seen a people who built their entire world on a single vow: never run for the darkness again.
They see themselves as a collective, as one part of a fortress. But at the very same time, they champion this ruthless, high-stakes game of power, saying you must cut down the tallest tree so a stronger one can take its place.
It leaves us with a really important question.
It does. Given their history with this existential threat, this corruption, and this internal system that constantly pushes the strongest to challenge the leader, what happens?
What happens to the stability of the fortress when that external darkness returns and all the strongest trees are busy trying to cut each other down?
Something for you to think about. What's the real price of maintaining that kind of enduring strength?